People who know me know that I'm very careful about the information I get from Heaven's side. I research everything. I try to verify what I can. If I can't verify it, I check to see if it has synchronicity. And so if something doesn't resonate with me, I go back to them and I say, "What's about this about?" So yesterday, Jesus said something in his interview with us about Commodus, Emperor Commodus. And he said that he had another lifetime during the colonial era when he was respected for his what he did, but then he was executed in the end. I thought I knew who it was, and I asked him later, and he confirmed that it was Benedict Arnold. And so I researched Benedict Arnold, and I found out that he was not executed, although I was one of those people that thought he probably had been. Um, And so I went back to Jesus and I said, "What's this about?" Because this is, you tell me it's Benedict Arnold, but that's not comporting with my research into his life after he turned against the Americans and joined the British and became prime enemy number one and the epitome of betrayal and the most well known traitor in American history. And it caused some confusion as we were trying to sort it out. And so this morning, Jesus came to me, and I'll just let you listen to what he has to say about it. But I think it's very important to understand that how these stories develop and how they come about. It has not to do only to do with the story about Benedict Arnold, but it has to do with the story about Jesus as well. And all these other stories that people tend to believe. How do they get started? And people can say things that they really believe. And that's what we were talking about a couple sessions ago when we were talking about what people were reporting about their experiences with Jesus. You can truly believe something is true based on just information that you have received one way or another. People can truly believe a story that is not true. And so this episode should give you some clues too about the difference between the way the ground rules in heaven and the ground rules on earth. And this is something that has um, caused confusion in my conversations with those heaven side before, because it's like talking to people that are in a totally different culture. And in their culture, things do not come together the way necessarily the way they do on Earth. And so, it's an exercise in resolving issues because we are coming at them from different directions. So you might want to listen to this. I think it's very interesting. All right, what do we want to do today? To clarify something for everybody because I said something that was not accurate, and Steph caught me on it. And she said to me, "Jesus, I don't know why you said that this man was executed when you were talking." And I had to explain to her that it was not what I thought, because I did think he had been executed due to the trust on what I was told by someone the other day when I was inquiring about it. And I didn't check on the Akashic records or anything else that would verify it. I trusted on hearsay, you might say, and I passed on hearsay to you. And being you, although You suspected who it was and you asked me later and I confirmed it. And then you researched and you said, well, he was not executed. So what's going on here? Did you have the wrong person in mind? And I said, no, it's the same person. And I couldn't figure out what went wrong because when you're in heaven, you simply trust on the moment and what comes into your mouth. It comes into your mouth because you trust on saying what you say and doing what you do. And there's no duplicity here, you see. There is no effort to deceive anyone unless you are trusting on being deceptive. Because if you're trusting on being deceptive, then it would be evident to everybody around you. They would say, well, this person is trusting on being duplicitous. And so whatever he says is going to be duplicitous. And they won't hang around you, so to speak. They will go away and say, we don't want to play with you here in heaven because you are telling lies. And so people here learn not to tell lies. We've talked about this before, that when you're in heaven, if you throw sand, it just comes back in your own eyes. And so you learn not to attack other people or manipulate them or try to deceive them. However, when we connect with you, Stephanie, and through you with the people on earth, there is a different vibration because it's very important to pull apart the stories and find out how it all fits together. Because on earth, there is a trust on synchronicity, which is good, very good. In heaven, we don't concern ourselves too much with it because we are trusting on our ability to discern when somebody is trying to fool us. So we just say, I don't want to play with you if you're going to fool me. And they quickly learn not to try to fool others. However, if somebody truly believes something here, then it's not duplicitous. And the person I was talking to truly believed that this person was executed. And so it never occurred to me to question it. And when I talked to you and you were telling me it didn't make sense, I got confused. I got totally confused because of the difference in the way that we function here and the way you function there. Because I had no clue that it was not true. And so you investigated it on your side and I investigated it on mine. And I went and I talked to that person and I said, wait a minute, what you said is not true. And he said, what do you mean it's not true? That's what I heard. And when I went and investigated more, I found out that there are many people on earth who believe that this person was executed as a spy or traitor, and it is not true, even though they believe it. And even you believe me at first when I said it, but when you investigated, you found out it was not true. And that is because sometimes people believe things without knowing why. They just don't know why they believe something because it is conveyed to them in subtle ways. And I think this is a very, very important point in why I'm making it. Because this person was hung in effigy many, many times. And because this person was hung in effigy many times, it created the impression that he was executed for his crimes when he was not. And so I thought to myself, well, this is interesting that even I was taken in by this story and I didn't go and check it out. I didn't go and check out to see if it was true, because I could have easily checked it out here because we have access to the Akashic records, which will tell us what's true and what's not true. But I didn't do that. I just trusted on what somebody told me. However, because you rarely trust on what people tell you, you always go and investigate. You were able to stop this rumor in its tracks. You were able to say, Jesus, it doesn't make sense today, and we need to figure this out because I'm not going to be part of a pattern of duplicity if I can help it. And sometimes we just can't help it because I didn't mean to be part of a pattern of duplicity. And so I want to say that all the stories out there today about my life, about who I am and who others are the result of the natural tendency of humanity to accept what they're told. And it becomes part of their life, you see. They depend on it. And they talk about it as if it were true. And it becomes part of their worldview. And so it's very hard for people to understand that something they thought was true simply because it was told to them by people they trusted, and you trusted me to tell you the truth. However, you always unearth the discrepancies because you trust on synchronicity. You trust on there being consistency in the story. And so you have a tendency to research everything we say. And just because I said it, just because Jesus said it, doesn't mean it's true. And I make this point very strongly. First of all, to say that I'm human too, and I make mistakes. And second, to say that the way you play is very, very important for people who are listening to these videos. That you will call me or anyone on a discrepancy. And you will say, hey, that doesn't make sense today, because when I read about it, he was not executed. I don't know where you got that information, or if you meant something else. Did you mean something else? Is it what somebody might say, that he was executed in his reputation, or what? And I had to clarify my own thinking on this matter, and it took me a bit because I didn't understand it as I explained to you. I didn't understand it because in heaven we have a different point of view. We just trust on the moment, you see. We just trust on what we say and do, and we don't worry about it. We don't have to worry about it because we don't have the same point of view that you do on earth. And so the third thing I want to say is, even if you hear it from me today, doesn't mean that I have all the information, you see. So when I talk about my own story, I'm more likely to remember what happened to me. And of course, I can go to the Akashic records and check it out too. However, when I talk about what happened to someone else, it's usually based on hearsay. If I didn't know them personally, and I did not know this man personally, I was not there. I just knew that he was the same individual, because when you're here, you can get pretty clear about the identities on Earth of different people, the parts they played. It's sort of like there is a reference manual that comes with each of them, and you can look it up and see that they had a lifetime here and there in that place, and you'll know when you had lifetimes together, etc. So I want to correct the record today officially, and I want to say that I love to play with you, Steph, because of your very, very careful review of everything that's told to you. And of course, you trust that it's all a story anyway, so you don't worry about it because you say, well, it's just a story, Jesus. Because when I go back to the white light, there's no story at all. It's complete, you see. So I don't worry about it. I just know that we have stories. And those stories are true when they all fold back together, you see. And that's your understanding of synchronicity. That it all has to fold back together like a algebraic equation, which is your way of trying to explain this to people. That an algebraic equation can spread out like a fan and it can fold back like a fan into a trust on completion, you see, because zero is the symbol of completion. It is the symbol of the white light, you might say. And so it all has to fold out and it all has to fold back correctly. And if you get something wrong in your work as you try to figure out how to solve the equation, then you won't get the right answer, you see? And so you have to keep working on it to make sure it will all fold back correctly. And this is how people can trust on you because you will call me on anything I say that doesn't resonate with you when you check it out. And you say, we got to be very careful today not to mislead people. And I agree, we have to be very careful today not to mislead people and to help them see that every history has to be a trust on synchronicity. And therefore, if I say something and you say something, and it appears that there is a difference in point of view, then we have to take a look at it and figure out why there's a difference in point of view. Maybe when I was looking at the elephant, the sun was in my eyes. And to my surprise, I thought the elephant was pink. And you say, well, I've never seen a pink elephant, dear. So we need to talk about it and figure out why your elephant was pink and mine was gray or a different color, perhaps, if it was covered in mud or whatever. And so we talk about it, and you say, well, do you remember what happened that day? And I say, yes, I was looking at the elephant and the sun was in my eyes. And to my surprise, the elephant appeared pink because the colors of the dying sun, you might say, were sending rays of pink and other shades of color through to my eyes. And so we go look at an elephant and we say, hey, let's look at this elephant when the sun is in our eyes. And to our surprise, we might find that the sunset has created a miasma of colors that cause us to think that it is pink. But in the rest of our experiences with the elephant, it is always gray. And we say, hey, so it's only pink when the sun is in your eyes as it sets. And then we say, hey, let's add that to our equation so that we can get some accuracy here. It doesn't mean I was wrong. It just means that I was looking at it from a different point of view than you. And I had a different factor that I had to deal with. And this is the nature of synchronicity. You see that you have to trust that it all fits together. You have to trust that it all fits together. If it doesn't fit together, as it doesn't for many children that are sitting in those pews and they say, well, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. How could this be true? And their parents say, shut up, because you have to accept it on faith. And so faith becomes shorthand for saying you have to accept what is not true in order to be one of the sheep that will be led to the slaughter. And I'd rather you be one of the lambs that plays in the field and says, hey, this makes sense. This makes sense. This makes sense. I could see that my mother told me to shut up because my mother, you see, didn't want me to be someone who would be crucified like Jesus or subject to an inquisition or hanged as a witch or whatever flavor her experiences and fears had taken to shape her into the one who would say to me, shut up. You just have to accept it on faith. Because if you don't accept it on faith, then you have no clue what they will do to you. What they will do to you, my dear, is to harm you. And so to us, to accept something on faith means that we accept the trust that if we don't do what we must, they will bust our brains, you see. And that is what faith means to most Christians. It just means do what you're told to do, even if it's not logical, even if it doesn't make sense, even if it's not what God wants, so that the other people around you won't kill you because you don't do what they tell you to. And that's what happened to me. Of course, I got crucified because I did not abide by the rules of the church in my day. And that is the way people play. And so if you're sitting in that church with the crucifix in front of you, remember this lesson that I was killed by the Jews, not the Romans, and that they forced the Romans to do what they wanted them to. So even though the Jews were the captives, you see, they were able to exert their authority over their captors. And this should tell you something. This should tell you that the ability to have faith, that those who are so stupid that they think they have the inside track on reality are the ones who may be the fatality of the human race. And so I'm alive today, and I lived after that day when I was crucified because God did say, hey, get up and walk, my son, because God gave to me what I had given to others. He gave me back my life, you see, because I gave the life to many others when I said to them, trust on God and be free. And so God said, I trust on you, my son, be free. And I am free. And I am here to be free to talk to you in a way that hopefully will help you to understand what this is about. This is not about me being better than you. It is about me being the same as you. It is about a woman who said to me, Jesus, that can't be true. So can we talk about it? Maybe we can figure it out. And I said, yes, let's figure it out. And we did. We figured it out to our satisfaction, both of us. And now we trust on each other, you see, to say, hey, I love you. And I say, I love you too, because there's no breach between us, you see. There's no place where we say, well, he's a liar today, or it's not really Jesus, because Jesus would never make a mistake, or maybe I don't understand it, right? Maybe I'm the one that has it wrong. There's no confusion between us today because we play that way. We say, if it doesn't make sense, then let's talk about it. If it doesn't make sense, let's talk about it. And if that child sitting in the pew goes up to the pastor and says, hey, it doesn't make sense, let's talk about it. And the pastor says, well, I'm the one that knows everything and you don't know anything, so just sit down and shut up and listen to me. And then you got a pretty good clue. That is not what you should do. You should say to the pastor, hey, that's very rude of you to treat me that way. And I am a child of God, just like you. However, it's clear to me that you think you have a inside track on the way to play the game of life, you see? And I prefer to play with those who think my way because they think that we're all in it together and that even if I'm a child, I'm actually as old as you because you see, I am the one who knew that I'm an eternal soul. And if you knew that, you would not treat me this way. You would say to me, hey, son, come and sit with me because there's nothing I would love more to do than get your point of view. But the pastors in the churches probably will not do that because they trust on the golden idol. You see that they're better than their flock and that they will beat the clock and they will be lifted up into heaven before Armageddon comes to destroy the rest of humanity. Thank you, Jesus.